Welcome to the Drawing Solo podcast. My name is Mason McKinney, and I'm with.
Christopher Burns.
And if you want to find out how to get inspiration from anywhere, make sure you sign up to my newsletter and get a free ebook that'll show you just how to do so. My gift to you. So, Chris, where are you from?
I am from Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. Tell me, what do you create?
I create manga.
Manga. All right. Tell me about the manga that you create in 7 words.
So my first story, Chikara, is Christianity with Demon Slayer and One Piece.
Christianity, Demon Slayer, and One Piece. And what's the other one?
And my other story is Gun Game, which is Call of Duty with bounty hunting adventures.
Okay. Call of Duty. One with Christianity, Demon Slayer, and One Piece, and the other one with Call of Duty, Bounty Slayer, and Hunters.
Bounty hunting
Bounty
adventures.
hunting. Okay, cool. All right. What made you want to create?
Well, I come from a family of artists and musicians, so art and music has always been in my family and intertwined in what I'm always around. So I've been creating since I was pretty much born, but I started getting into comics and manga about 13 years old, and I found that was an avenue that I felt that I could really be myself in, but also spread life lessons and inspiration to others through that medium. I found that I could do that really, really well.
All right. You say you have a lot of Christianity. What the one thing about Christianity, Demon Slayer, and One Piece? What are some of the that's very interesting to me because what are the aspects from each that you pull into that comic? What is the name of that comic?
So the name of it is Chikara.
Okay.
The Christianity aspect of it is based on the Book of Revelation. So it's post-apocalyptic. It talks about the end times and, of course, the war that happens before the return of Christ to rule over the planet. And Demon Slayer comes in that aspect because since it is Christian based, obviously it's the fight between good and evil, demons and Christianity. So throughout the story, they fight, lesser tier demons, which is what we call them, which are basically think of mindless demons or those mindless. I don't know if you play Kingdom Hearts, but the
Yes.
Heartless, think of them. But then it goes all the way up into high ranking demons, which in Demon Slayer are ones that have more power because obviously they've gotten more close to Satan. They're closer to that rank. So that's where Demon Slayer comes in. And One Piece brings in for the overall adventure because they travel they're going to travel all across the world. They're going to meet a wide ranging group of characters with different backgrounds, ethnicities, body shapes, all that kind of stuff. Some are wacky, some are goofy. That's where the One Piece aspect comes in.
Okay. Nice. I wanted to ask what is your history with Christianity?
So I am a Christian. I was born and raised Baptist, so it's been a part of my life, my whole life. So that's the backstory behind that, at least.
Yeah, I completely get you. So I guess it's been a really big part of I guess the word would be ethos when it comes to
Yes.
creating stories that because Christianity highly inspires you. It obviously flows through the stories that you want to tell.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I get you. Okay, so what was the 7 words for the second one,
Call of Duty with bounty hunting adventures.
and what was the name of that?
Gun game.
Okay, so why Call of Duty and the bounty hunting adventures? What's so specific about Call of Duty since it's such a wide variety of stories within that series?
So the gun game, at least with Call of Duty, is because one of the game modes in Call of Duty is called gun game, where you kill people, and if you kill a certain amount of people, you get different guns, and you win the game if you get to the last one first. That's the basis behind it. But with gun game, it isn't that. It isn't them just killing people and getting new guns. It's the Call of Duty inspiration really goes into it because it's more. It's really gun heavy, and with Call of Duty now, Call of Duty back in the day was gun heavy, of course, but it wasn't as gun technical as it is now. Nowadays, with the new Call of Duties, with Modern Warfare at least, you got to know what attachments do what, and there's everything now. It's people that know guns can understand Call of Duty now a little bit better, I guess, than they could before. But that's the inspiration behind that, was to really make this manga really, really gun heavy. So that way people that
Hmm.
love guns can see that and be like, oh, okay, this artist actually knows that this attachment goes on this gun, and this is why it does that. It makes sense. It's not because it just looks cool.
Oh, do you have like any history with guns? Like, are you like interested in
I'm a
that
hunter.
kind? A hunter? Oh, for real,
Yes.
for real. What can you
Yes.
tell me about that?
So I this is my second year hunting. I'm still relatively new, but even before then, I've always loved firearms. As a kid, I wasn't around them that much. It was a more something that I got into probably like in college, just because of needing something to protect myself, and of course having my family. Like just the way the world's going right now, like just
Yeah.
walking around without any sort of protection is like pretty wild, especially like being in the area that I'm in. I'm not in actually downtown Atlanta, but I'm south of Atlanta. But even then, like it's still is dangerous wherever you go these days. So I got
Yeah.
into it
Gotta
more
watch
of
your
like
back.
yeah, I got into it now mainly because, or back then mainly for protection's sake, but I got into hunting a year ago just for providing sake, since the economy is like we're pretty much like going crazy and everything's so expensive. I was like, this is something that I want to do to help provide for myself, my family, and my friends. If something like were to happen and we need to have food,
Mm.
and that's kind of what got me into that.
Like, have you ever gotten into like harvesting meat from like any game at all?
This season I'm trying to learn. I have my friend's dad that like wants to teach me. Because outside of hunting, let me go back. I've been fishing my whole life. That's normally
Hmm.
how I would, I'm a big fisherman, but hunting since it's so new. Like I know that I can kill a deer and take it to the processor, but I want to learn how to do it myself because it is expensive to get that done. So hopefully in the next couple of months, I'll be able to learn that skill.
All right, nice, nice. So, the next thing I will ask is, what do you want to see more in more of in your creative field?
I would like to see more artists branch out, at least in the manga industry, because I do graphic design and other stuff on the side, which, that's pretty diverse now. I would like to see, at least in the manga aspect, more creatives, um, whether they're making their own stories or whether they're, just drawing their own stuff. I'd like to see more originality. I feel like these days, since it's so easy to copy, especially digitally, more and more artists are not finding a true style. They're just really basing it off of what's trending. And I've seen that in the last couple of years with the release of Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero to some extent, not as much as My Hero, but Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man, I've seen a lot of artists just base their style solely off of those animes because they're trending, and they make their story with that art style, of course, to draw in that fan base. And to me, like it's just not original. So I'm trying to word this in a way that won't ruffle people's feathers. But at the end of the day, if it ruffles your feathers, then maybe you're part of the problem.
Hmm.
But that's my opinion. What I want to see change. I want to see. I'm not saying that people can't take inspiration, because obviously I take inspiration from tons of stuff. One Piece, Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, Naruto, Attack on Titan, you name it. Those are my inspirations, and I've used some techniques in my artwork, yes, to pay inspiration and homage to them, but I do have a style, and you can look at my style and see that you can see those aspects in it, but it's not solely based off of one thing. It's not just a carbon copy of Naruto with a new character. It's not just a replica of Chainsaw Man and it's called something else. I feel like we need to see more people just get out of that. Just don't settle and sell, quote unquote, in quotation, sell your soul for what's going to get you popular quick. You need to make something original that's going to stand out, because if I look at your work and look at Chainsaw Man's and think it was done by the same artist, that's an issue.
What do you think we can learn from from people's, as you would call, unoriginality?
I think we can learn, and it's not going to be instant. It's going to take time, but I think we're going to eventually learn that they're not going to be remembered as these artists that have made their own style will be. Yes, in the moment they will gain followers. They might sell books. They might sell, illustrations. Yeah, but like 30, 40 years down the line, is someone really going to remember them for making this fantastic story that's super unique? chances are no. They're going to be like, oh yeah, that's the guy that, that reminds me of Chainsaw Man. It's not going to be like, yo, this is them. And I think down the line, we're all going to learn from that. And new artists are going to learn from that and see that, oh, like originality is what makes it. Yeah, my art might not be what's trending at the moment, but at least in 30 years, people can look at my stuff and immediately know it was me and know that, this is my story, my characters, and I put my heart, sweat, and tears into developing this.
I get you. I get you. That kind of reminds me of a pattern that I noticed. I forgot where I heard this from. I hear a lot of things, but sadly I don't know what they originate from. But that is I wanted to talk about the how easily that we can get our hands on technology, and that technology will allow us to make literally anything that we want to make. Mm-hmm. And with like the ease of technology, I guess I would use that as an example, like cameras or phones. Like back in the day, if you want to see something filmed, you would go to the cinema, you would go to the movie theater, and like anybody who had like a camera could anybody who had a camera were the big budget Hollywood types that could make cameras. And if you had a story that you needed a group of people to get behind, like it better be worth everybody's time. But as technology progressed and more people got their hands on the camera, that means more and more people were able to tell their stories. And just because everybody had a camera doesn't mean that their quality was good. Just because people have good cameras doesn't mean they take good pictures. You could just still take terrible pictures with a good camera.
Yes.
And I think that the ease of technology, that how everybody can now make whatever they want, that's cool. Everybody can tell the stories that they want, but at the same time, people don't know what to say. Everybody has a mic, and they don't know what to say when the spotlight's on them, and they end up regurgitating what's popular because that's all they know. What is your take on that?
No, I completely agree. First, does my mic sound good to you? You mentioned it, and I didn't even realize. Does it sound clean? Sound good?
Your mic is clean. Nice.
Okay, I was making sure it was connected to my actual mic and not through my computer audio. I was scared for a minute. I was like, oh snap, I didn't check. Yeah, okay, but my thoughts on that is I completely agree. It's even in the design world, like because I teach graphic design, and it's showing my students that yes, you have all the software that the professionals use, yes, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's still going to come out like you're using, like Google or what was the old, not Google Paint. Was it Google Paint?
Google Paint. Microsoft Paint?
It was Microsoft Paint. Yeah, yes. Yeah. Like it's still going to look like someone did Microsoft Paint. Like if you still don't study, you still don't, research, and you still don't learn. Because everyone now, like you said, is just so everything's so easily accessible now, and things are just at our fingertips, and just because there's a YouTube tutorial doesn't mean you're an expert on this. Like that's what people tend to think, like, oh, I'll just YouTube it. It's like, okay, well, like, yeah, you did the tutorial, you followed the instructions, but like what happens if you have to do this in a real-time setting? You haven't learned how to do it yourself. It's not muscle memory, and someone says, hey, I need this done, and you go, oh, I can't do it right now, but let me watch the tutorial. Your whole credibility's gone. They're gonna look at you and be like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like he's not professional. So I completely agree with you. Like just because you have the tools doesn't mean you know how to use them. Like unless you learn how to use them.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I do not want to say that in a discouraging way, because at the same time, we've all been there. We've all had we all had that instance of I want to create something because creating things sounds cool because that's where everything starts. And another golden thing about at least starting, I say like the second best thing of starting something is probably finishing it. Starting consistency, then finishing, because not everybody who can start something, they won't have the consistency. If they don't have the consistency, they're not going to finish it. And at the end of the day, like a finished product is a finished product, and no one can really take that away from you. And
I agree.
Yeah, because when it came to me making my own comic, my first comic, I had no idea if I was good or not, and except for when people, I had no idea when it was good or not. I just posted it online. People said it was good. I printed it through Amazon, sold it to people. People came back to me, said it was good, and then cut to today. Now when I get like a little bit of buzz, people are saying, "Oh, hey, yeah, your art is bad, your lettering is bad," and then I don't know, and like this feels like attacks that back when if they came to me sooner, I probably would have taken it more seriously. But when I gotten more like real world interactions of people who actually engaged and liked my stuff, the I can have a better understanding of where criticism is in good faith or bad faith. So I guess in my long-winded way of saying this is that actually starting and finishing, like having that I don't want to say the word pride, but a sense of accomplishment will be the best thing to protect. Not protect your I wouldn't say protect your ego, but it helps with self-worth.
Yes.
Do you have anything to add or like
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
I understand completely because with Chikara, at least when I started it, I wouldn't say the art was amazing. I think personally the art was terrible, but that's just
Yeah,
because that's where I started. That's just
yeah.
where I began. Of course, it's not going to be 100%. But just throughout the years, I've had people like come at me and say like the same kind of same thing, like, man, your font is terrible, your lettering's terrible, like the art is terrible, like you need to go back and change it, like this isn't the way that the Japanese do it, ABC, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
And in the beginning, I was a part of that percentage that was just like, man, like my stuff isn't like good, like, but I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep pushing through it.
Hmm.
Throughout the story there has been adjustments. There's been I think 2 font changes. We just did a new one, and there's the art, of course, has gotten better over the years. And people are like, it doesn't look like, this isn't how the Japanese do it. It needs to like, and I'm just like, but number one, I'm not Japanese. I live in
Yeah,
America. Number
exactly.
two,
Yeah.
this story is not marketed towards the Japanese people. I do
Uh-huh.
not work in the Japanese market, so therefore, it does not matter if this is how the Japanese do it. If this is how South America does it, I'm not them. Like, I'm myself. And my point is like, for me personally, yes, I could go back to the chapter 1 all the way to chapter 12, redo the art, but like at the end of the day, I want my art to show the next generation that it's okay to have a beginning. It's okay
Hmm.
for your art and everything not to be 100% at the beginning. But as the people read through the story and keep reading and seeing your growth, they will respect you so much more than just seeing like you're 100% at the very beginning. And I feel like as a creator, as an artist, that's a lot more real, because I can go read Naruto, I can read Attack on Titan, One Piece. I love them all, but those artists, if you read their backstory and stuff before they even got started, there was revision after revision after revision because the editor said their art was terrible, characters were terrible, they need to go back and redo it. And so they went into the first volume when it was at its like perfection in quotation, because even then they still got better.
Hmm.
And you're seeing their perfection. You're not seeing what led up to that. So how can I relate to that as a beginner artist when I'm trying to learn how to do it if someone's already way ahead of me and I don't see where they began? So I make it a point to leave it the way it is. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the way it is.
That's kind of, yeah, I really like that approach because I would look at Purgatory Academy. It was my very first comic, and I didn't know what a style that I wanted to go with for that. And eventually settled down on like copying the style of Gorillas,
Hmm.
and like the second phase from like the early mid 2000s, because like that was I loved that style at the time. And I thought like, okay, it's a flat, simple style that I can work with. And as I progressed and moving on to like different art styles I want to emulate for with a second book, I look at the first book, and I can see when people say like the art's not completely there, and the art's not completely there, or like the technique isn't great, or like as great as the big like the big shonen guys.
Hmm.
I think, okay, yeah, you're right, you're absolutely right. But anyway, look at my new stuff. Like, right? And like when you look at the new stuff, doesn't it make it doesn't make like looking at the new stuff and much more valuable? Like it makes the reader
Yes.
follow that journey
Yes.
from, oh yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, to, yeah, this like this is still a work in progress. And I think with all my series, I still want to like switch up the styles, just to get a better understanding of different ways I can express the stories I want to tell visually. How is your how does your style correlate with the stories that you tell?
I'd say my style, since it's not a fully true shonen because I've studied a lot of shonens, but I've studied a lot of seinens, and it's just trying to figure out that balance. But I'd say my characters and the way I draw them give off that shonen energy of like fun, adventure, diversity. But then you read some of the stuff in the story and you see some of the facial expressions and some of like you realize, oh, like this is dark, this isn't, but it's not too dark. Like it's not too dark to where it's just like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, like I want to like go get under a rock or something. So I feel like that's my characters have a pretty good balance. It gives the sense of, this is the best way I could have explained it. It gives the sense of familiarity, but it also adds something new to that genre that I think people weren't expecting,
I
and they
think
don't expect.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said having that familiarity and expecting something new. I think that's the core of marketing, from like what I can perceive from
Hmm.
listening and just trying to get as much information, of trying to promote my stuff and seeing how other creatives promote their stuff, and people even outside of the creativity field, how they promote their stuff. And it's in the way of getting people's attention is starting off with, here's something familiar and here's something different enough to like keep people intrigued. I guess it's the same thing as you started with telling me explaining me your concepts in 7 words. You start off with established established titles that everybody understands, but in a way, mixing it in a way that is different that no that the I guess what you would call like the sum of its parts. Is that what it's called? The
Uh, wait, what was it?
Yeah, like it's every like the three ideas, your separate ideas coming
Hmm.
together will create an entirely new idea.
Yes,
So I think that notion of giving something people something familiar and sprinkling in that one thing that is new, it is essential for getting people's eyeballs.
I completely agree, and some people really like it. Some people, obviously they're going to stick to what they know because it's
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, and other people are going to give it a shot. And that's what I love and pride myself on with my stories, because it has those shonen aspects in terms of obviously the art, the power system, the fun characters, but the main character didn't just appear in chapter 1 and know exactly what he wanted to do, and that carries the story. My
Mm-hmm.
main character is a very realistic character to where he's been in this certain situation. Now he's in a completely new world 500 years later. Do you think any normal person would just be like, oh, I'm just going to do this? And no, they would be had a PTSD. They'd be confused. They wouldn't know what to think, what to believe, where to go from there. So I'm writing him in a way that shows his growth from the beginning of being just an arrogant orphan, non-believer, to being a believer, having a goal, and trying to follow through that goal through the best of his ability. And of course, he's going to fall. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to mess
Mm-hmm.
up because he's human. He's not just going to. And I love that about Shonen. Obviously, like I love that Luffy can get virtually cut in half, and he's still going to say, "I'm king of the pirates." But in a realistic sense, if I'm getting beat up to a pulp, and someone's like, you're not going to say blah blah blah, there's probably going to be a couple of instances in my mind where I go, man, I probably should just die. This hurts a lot. Like I don't want to do this. So I'm trying to write him to be very realistic, so where things will challenge him, things will challenge his beliefs, his goals, and he's going to have
Hmm.
to make that decision to keep pushing forward, or he might not, and he might do something and it'll have effects that'll last the rest of the story because he just didn't do what he was supposed to do.
I That reminds me of a story that I was writing with a friend. I don't want to give too much into spoilers or anything, but it came because I think I love to think philosophically when it comes to writing episodes and about about the themes.
Hmm.
And there is this one episode where the our protagonist had to overcome a surprising obstacle, like an insurmountable obstacle, like something larger than life. And my co-writer, and I were basically in a call debating how he would tackle it because what he wanted to do, he just wanted our protagonist just to hit that problem head on, even though it was bigger than him. And I said, no, the protagonist needs, like I say, no, the protagonist needs to use everything that he learned in like throughout the episode, and realize that he needs to cut the big problem down into sizable chunks, and before he knows it, he would defeat the obstacle. And it was really funny because what we realized is that was as we go back and forth about how the protagonist would deal with this problem, we were subconsciously talking about our own worth ethic and how we would write and how our worth ethic would portray the character that we were trying to write. And I think that a whole subconscious understanding of using stories as a way to to portray messages about whatever you want as a very powerful thing.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And some stories have done that technique, and some have stuck through the two that stand out the most recent that I really appreciate and I really love is Attack on Titan and My Hero. And if you haven't read those, and this is spoilers for you, I'm sorry, turn it off. But
Hmm.
with My Hero,
Or keep reading.
having the first half of the story is, of course, Deku wanting to be the number one hero, but then it shifts to now, like, that's not even a thought in his mind anymore. Now it's like survival because he's being like hunted basically, and he's trying to, you know, he's just trying to do a completely different mission. And then, of course, with Attack on Titan and Eren Yeager, how it was, I'm going to destroy the Titans, and then it shifts to actually I'm going to kill everyone on the planet except for my friends. It's completely different, and you can see how that struggle has affected them, like physically, mentally. Like Eren season one and Deku season one could look completely different than what they did currently and at the end. Like they just and I love when creators do that because even though it's a fictional world, it brings that sense of realism to the character because and the people can relate to that because people were really challenged on their beliefs on. You have those people watch Attack on Titan. They're like, "Oh, I'm a Jaegerist. I love Eren," and people are like, "What? No, Eren's terrible." Like, there's that challenge, that
Hmm.
controversy, and I don't think that's ever been done in anime and manga before, to where you have a fan base that was so devoted for the entire season until at some point they go, wait, like, what side do I pick? And now there's controversy amongst the fans with it. Like, I'm sure that's been done in other things, but just I feel like recently that's like hasn't been done in a hot minute. I feel like a lot of
Hmm.
animes that come out, everyone loves everybody, and there's no like debate on like who's right and who's wrong. It's just everyone loves everybody, and
Yeah.
Attack on Titan really did push that.
Or like you would have like some sort of big bad being like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to uh essentially rule over everybody with an iron fist."
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
everyone's like, the evil villain might be cool. You might be like, yeah, that guy's cool, but like
yeah,
at the end, you're gonna side with the main hero because he's the main hero.
yeah. It's like,
So
ah, man, I don't feel like being under an infinite Tsukuyomi.
I was
That's
literally about to say, like, I
Yeah,
love Madara, I love Obito, like I think they're the coolest villains like ever. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not compelled to side with them. Like,
yeah,
yeah, your friends died, but like so is everybody else's. So like, there's not a big reason for me to side with you on this.
yeah.
But with
Like
Aaron Attack on Titan, it's like, he kind of has a point. Like, this humanity is terrible.
it's like I
Like,
want to be left alone, and these people won't leave us alone.
yeah, like I get it. I would be conflicted too. So it's just like, I love when creators do that. I love when they push those limits. It really makes the story a lot. And in Attack on Titans, like, one of the shorter series too. The fact that they did that in like, or he did that in like such a short series, and some of these other stories can't even do that in like series that have been going on and for 25 years and stuff. It's like, it's like, come on, it's possible.
I think the
But
I think it's so different because I keep hearing. I remember hearing way back in the gap was that a some series that went on like for 25 years. I feel like the first thing that comes to mind with One Piece,
yep.
and I remember hearing a rumor that One Piece was supposed to like stop during at the end of Alabasta back in time, just in case like if One Piece wasn't popular, it would have ended like back then. And because the fact that it went on for so long, it was just, yeah, Oda was like, okay, yeah, he was kind of prepared to say what he wanted to say because but at the same time, he was just feeling out the world.
Hmm.
Because like I know there were some parts of like One Piece where I was like, yeah, we don't really need to know about this, or I'm glad that he loves his world, and like I share that same passion when it comes to world building. Because I remember I keep telling people like if somebody gave me Star Wars, I'm gonna like make an entire story about like off planet, like some far off planet that has nothing to do with the Empire or the Rebels. It's just gonna be, hey, here's this alien world. Here's what it would look like over here. Here's like the struggles that they got to go through. And in the background, you probably see people like, oh yeah, I'm going off to fight a war, and people's like, well, that's weird. Anyway, like
No,
I would try to I would love to show like the aspects about like what it would be like living in that world. But I think I guess like what I'm trying to go around and saying is like people there's like a weird sense of like people padding just because they a series would get too popular and they want to like milk it for as long
yes,
as possible.
I agree.
And I remember from watching one video about, I forgot what it was called. It was like Dakuman or something. It was a manga about mangakas making mangas.
Yeah, Bakuman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bakuman. And one things I remembered was that if a series is good, they're gonna want to milk it, and if it's bad, they're gonna want to cut it. And like the creator really essentially has no say in the matter. So, and I think it was like very cool to see like the instances where creators want to make what they want to make, and then they're done. And it's a very rare instance where that happens. And I think a good series. I feel like it's a good balance of that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure,
hmm
because like Araki has. I feel inspired by the way he tells like the entire storyline of like different parts of here. Like each part is like its own contained story. So it starts and it ends the way that he wants it, and if he wants to continue, he can do so. And he's just been doing that for 9 parts, I believe, right now.
Yeah, like, he's been working on JoJo for a lot longer than I think One
Since
Piece.
yeah, since '87. Last time
Yeah,
I
it's
checked.
been, but no, it's like he's basically doing a bunch of mini stories, all combined into one, and of course, by the end of it, we'll know why it's all interconnected, of course, and why everything's the way it is. But I haven't like I'm not like I think the last part that I watched was the one with Josuke. I didn't watch anything after that because I just got pulled into some other anime directions. But I
Hmm.
really enjoyed. I think it was parts one, two, three. I guess it was four. So those first four parts, like I
Yeah,
really liked how it started back off in like the early, I guess it was 1900s, and then it went into the 1940s with the World War II stuff references, and then it went into the I guess it was 70s, and then the 80s. Like I just like how it was like like I said, a lot of mini stories based in different areas of the world, and like all that kind of like I thought that was really really just different and unique and a different take on just storytelling because it really doesn't have a genre. It's not like a true shonen. It's not like a battle. Like what I mean? Like it's its own thing. Like
Y-
it really is its own thing.
yeah. I think when you say it doesn't have a true like style, the first thing that came to mind was Hunter x Hunter, honestly. And like one of my favorite thing about Hunter x Hunter is that it changes genre every arc, and I'm like, I like that. I think more people. I don't. Okay, I shouldn't say that. I don't think more people should do that, but I encourage a lot of people who feel like if a certain story that they want to tell would like change direction, Like I feel like they should go with it if it serves the overall story. And I feel like having the guts to do that, or like just switch genre just like switch genre mid story. I think that's a very cool thing. But
No, I agree.
that's me. That's just me. But I wanted to ask, what are some of your real world experiences that you put in your comics?
So some of them are really based off of personal experiences, like in the sense of like I talked earlier about like conflicting choices, whether it's, as a Christian, at least, not necessarily as a human, but like as Christians, things like,
Mm-hmm.
like, is this something I should believe? Because at some point, every Christian goes through that. They have that thought, like, is this like really like real? Like, is it, or am I, like, what's going on? So, like, those type of situations, not so much romance that will happen at some point in my story, but I'm not really adding a lot of romance, but realistic romance, to the sense of not every girl is going to like you, even if you love her. And you got to figure out how to deal with that as a man and keep doing what you got to do. So there's going to be stuff in there about that. Currently, at least what's going on right now in the story, very much, there was a confliction of purpose. Like, who really am I now that I have these responsibilities? Like, how do I present myself? Because I'm sure everyone that has traveled, went to college, can relate to, the person you are in high school. Day one in college, you have a chance to rewrite your entire personality again. Like, you have a chance to
Mm-hmm.
be someone brand new. You can be whatever name you want. You can have a different personality, and no one's there because you're in college. No one's there that you know. So you can be a completely different person. So that aspect in the story of, the main character was this type of person, and then the apocalypse happened, and now he has these powers. Now he's about to realize, like, this is my chance, or really kind of has been already, like, this is my chance to rewrite who I was, and this is who I can be. And this is my chance to restart, and I can be whoever I want to be now. And that's coming up actually real soon in the chapter I'm working on, like the whole like the name Chikara and stuff. People have been asking me, like, wait, is his name Chikara? His name is Chris. I'm just be patient. Like, it's coming. Like, that's the reason, like, he gets this name is, I don't want to spoil it, but something's happening in the current chapter where, like, he makes that decision. So it's like, real
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that I've had happen in my life, my experiences. And um that's why I'm pouring it into the main character. He's kind of a reflection of the stuff I've went through in certain scenarios and how I've dealt with them.
What is your take on the saying, if you have something, oh, I'm trying to remember, but it was a comic editor, I believe. He said, if you have a twist in mind, put it into the next issue. What is your take on that in the next chapter? I guess it will say chapters, since we're going with that manga like format.
Um, for I mean, for me, there is going to be, like, my story is not by any means going to be a cookie cutter, like, one pieced out story where it's like new area, new villains fight, new area, new villains fight. Like, I'm trying to stem away from that. I'm trying to yes, obviously, since there is battles, there has to be balance between I call it information and action.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be balance, or else the story gets boring, or the story gets too like Dragon Ball Z, to where it's like, why are we fighting so much? Like, can we just have some time to chill? Like, um, so I'm trying to do that balance. But I'd say, like, for sure, twist in general, like, yeah, like with the current chapter 16 that just came out, big twist. I don't think people were really expecting, like, what happened to happen. I guess it's not a spoiler because it's already out. Like, if you haven't read it, you haven't read it. But with the demon that became a giant demon and, like, ate Kalani, I don't think anybody was ready for that. And I think because I wanted that to happen, and no one was ready for it because the previous chapter before there, everything seemed to be going fine. She was just fighting, and Kalani's being Kalani. She's a comedic relief. What could ever happen to her? So the fact that she did get eaten up was a big twist. And with chapter 17 about to come out soon, that twist is going to be revealed, and it's going to be pretty cool. But no, I agree, and there's some bigger twists down the line for sure for the story that I don't think people will expect. and I'm really ready for them.
I feel like what I want to touch on is something that you said earlier when it came to adding a good balance of information mixed with the fighting. And the first thing that came to my mind was how quickly I got bored with Bleach Thousand Year Blood War. I think that is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but I remember the last time I was just binge watching Bleach, and it was a good balance of like building the like characterization, world building, and then setting up all the characters, and then we would see them fight. But from like the last season of Bleach all the way up to the Thousand Year Blood War, it was just constant lineups and fighting, and I got bored so quickly because at that time I kind of forgot who all these characters were, and I just started seeing a bunch of over the top anime, like sword swinging, talking a little bit, and then more sword swinging.
Hmm.
And I got the exact same idea that you had. I was like, oh, what is even going on here? And that reminded me of a video that I saw that was talking about Jurassic Park. What made Jurassic Park so interesting? Because the dinosaurs were such a small part of the movie, and the was like in retrospect we think about the dinosaurs as like the staple of
Hmm.
Jurassic Park, but somebody mentioned that what really made the dinosaurs a staple in our minds, it was because of how the characters hyped them up. Like it was like the first half of like probably I think she was like something like saying something like the first half of Jurassic Park was just everybody just setting up like how dangerous these guys are, and then like probably like a third of the movie was just showing off like them wreaking havoc, and it was because everybody was just it was just that expectation. It was just that expectation and delivery that that made it stick out in people's minds. But when I saw Thousand Year Blood War, I just saw nothing but delivery. I forgot about the expectation. I saw nothing but delivery, and I was thinking, why am I getting so much food here? It's like why where's the prep? I don't understand. So
Yeah.
that just came to my mind. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I agree completely. It's hard sometimes to judge information and action with stories because of course if you have characters at least if it's a fighting, story or story with action, I should say. Of course as a creator you wanna show off the action. You want to show off the new abilities, the speed, the agility, the powers, the cool ways to draw or animate. Like you want to give everyone the meat because you're putting all your time and energy into that part, and then people sometimes forget about the information. They're like, oh, we'll just tweet this, like, more action because it's exciting, it'll captivate you. I think people don't realize that consumers love lore more sometimes than the action of the story. Like, yeah, I love to see, like, I'm trying to give an example of just stories that like for I'll just say Naruto because it's most people know it. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love to see the main character fighting off, the main villain and blah 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 blah. But like, hold up a minute. Like, I want to learn more about this sound village that Orochimaru made. Like, no one talks about that, or like the grass, like the hidden grass. Like, we haven't seen people from the hidden grass since like season one of Naruto. Like, what happened to them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just I would like to learn more as a consumer to be like, yo, like really, where are these guys? Like, where's their village? Like, what do they do? What type of stuff? Like, that's cool. Like, and like with the even with some of the main characters, like in Naruto, like Kiba's clan, Shino's clan, all these different clans that make up the Leaf Village. Like, we talk about them for a brief second, but then they sweep it under the rug and we never mention them again. And I'm just like, dude, these are like more. This stuff is cooler than the main character. Like, yeah, he has a nine tails in him, but like okay, that's it. Like, what about these guys that like literally like made up the village like a long time ago? Like, I just feel like art like creators don't realize how important information really is to the consumer because you have to keep the consumer thinking about your story. Yeah, they can talk about the latest like Gear 5 episode of One Piece, but imagine if that's all One Piece had. They would talk about Gear 5 for a month and then after that they would forget and watch something else. But
Okay.
since
Yeah.
oh, yeah, go for it, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to push back a little bit on that because I understand what you're saying, but I wanted to like give a little bit of pushback. is the reason why we don't listen to, or at least we aren't focused that much about the village hidden in the sand or like Kiba's clan, is because that would lose focus of what the main story was trying to do. It's Naruto's story about trying to become the most respected in his village, and what would Kiba's clan have to do about what would Kiba's clan help with the aid of serving Naruto's ultimate goal, or the people in a village several miles away have to do to aid Naruto. If they're not like aiding him in this terms of being a an obstacle or a side character, it's cool that they're there, and it opens up little more opportunities in terms of storytelling if we want to like open up those tabs for like an offshoot for somebody else to explore, if they want to do so. But like the importance of like storytelling is understanding like understanding of a cohesive narrative of what that story wants to tell. I feel like that's why the way that the story is the way that it is.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I guess in the way I was describing it, I wasn't saying like basically like 180, like here's the grass village and let's talk about. I was just
Yeah.
saying like the fact that like sometimes like it just seems like we just like as a creator, not as a company, not as like a team, like just as a creator, like finding time to either not necessarily illustrate, but like I'm trying to find it. I guess the easiest way I can think of is Star Wars, and I know like George Lucas didn't create all this stuff, but like,
Oh my
and a lot of the
gosh, we can
fans
go
did.
into
But you know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah, I love
Like you know
talking
what I
about.
mean?
Yeah,
Like how Star Wars, like yes, like the main focus is the Skywalkers, but yet there is so many other races and characters that have been
mhm.
expounded upon and talked about, and like they can serve their other different. They all they serve the general story, but like at the end of the day, like if I want to know about the Gungan race, I can go learn about the Gungan race.
Yeah.
Like
There's like an entire books of like
yeah.
encyclopedias of like Star Wars that someone or a group of people just create. I remember back in high school, a kid brought like an encyclopedia of like Star Wars, and it was a legit textbook, and I was like, this is insane. And like,
And,
why?
and those were fan made. I know like George Lucas didn't just sit down and write all this stuff, but I wish more creative. Not saying you have to talk about every single
Yeah,
thing in your thing because obviously that takes a lot of time. But I just wish there were like more creators would actually, if they introduced a new race, like whether it's in the book, in the back of the book, somewhere talk about like, hey, like this is a little bit more
that
about these group of people,
that's what I
that way.
really, you know what? That's what I really loved about like early Star Wars games, because they would do more of that.
Hmm.
Like they were like, I think my favorite Star Wars game ever was like Star Wars Republic Commando, where you play as it was a mix between like a tactical first person. It was a tactical first person shooter where you were the leader of a squad of three different stormtroopers, and like you would go like set piece to set piece, fighting waves and waves of like different enemies, and you would tell your different people of your squad to take different position. Like you would go over there, hide behind that rock. You suppress that. You give me suppressed cover fire, and like you run over there. Well, I try to flank them, and it was like such like that was like every set piece after every set piece, and it was such a fun time. Which games don't do that anymore. I wish they would make a game like that
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah. Games
But
are now cash grab only. Like it's
like,
and the only and now that we're talking about Star Wars, it's bringing me now Lord of the Rings. I feel like as a writer, like even when he was alive, I feel like as a writer, he did more of that personally than
mhm.
almost like any other like writer like ever. Like the creator of Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, like he took the time out to be like, this guy is named Thorin Oakenshield, son of blah blah blah, son of blah blah blah. Like, and then he talked about this is where the dwarves, this is where they came from, this is how they originated. The elf, like there's just so much lore in that he did himself that it probably took a lot of time, but I
Yeah.
guess that's a very specific genre of story too. Obviously, you can't do that in manga. You can't be like, this is Naruto Uzumaki, son of blah blah blah, Uzumaki, and this is where they like, obviously that would be boring. But I don't know. I was just finding that balance is hard. Of like I said, information and action.
Oh
Just
yeah.
enough to give people, while they're waiting for the next book or chapter or episode, something to think about and go, yo, that's what does that even mean? Let me Google that, like, and look up, and you go down a rabbit hole and blah 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 and something, because that's what really keeps people, I think, invested.
Mm-hmm.
Is that having that itch to find out more information about a villain or a character or a love interest, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think fighting I think exposition is kind of like a weird. It's like a really hard to tightrope to walk on, to portray information, but in an interesting way for
Yes.
the audience to digest. And like one thing that I'm trying to work on with one of my series is giving out exposition about the religion of of the characters within the story. And I think at first I thought I was gonna write it something similar to the Bible of like passages and like saying like this happened so far, this happened and whatever and so on and so forth. But I had a whole document that had that. And when I was reading back to it, I was like, I love the story, but I'm bored reading this. So so the one thing that I've realized, something that I've came across was a seminar talking about hip hop, interestingly enough, poetry and hip hop, interestingly enough, and how poetry. The one cool thing about poetry is that one phrase, if formatted correctly, it can have a multitude of meanings. So instead of saying like an entire paragraph of like ultra specifics, you can have like four stanzas that speaks like an entire paragraph if you format it correctly. So and like I was like, whoa, that's really cool. And like I'm trying that thing right now. And how are you? What's like the best way that you can try to portray exposition? Yeah, I guess this is the right word. Portray exposition. How do you tackle exposition?
Um, I'm trying to think. Let me see. Uh, it's. I guess that's a question. That's hard. That's a hard question for me to answer, just because. Help me out real quick. What does
Mm-hmm.
exposition mean? Because I have an idea of what it means, but I want to make sure I'm saying the
Exposition
right
is
thing.
just filling in. Simply, it's just filling in the audience of what's happening. Like that. Like a lot of people use That's a lot of people use exposition. Like the most lazy way of exposition is telling and not showing.
Okay. Okay. That is okay. I
A
was
lot of
making sure I
people
was
say it's
thinking.
lazy, but I guess if it's done right, then you can do it.
For me and my story, I try to. I don't necessarily do a lot of like for example, um, what is for example, I'm thinking of what chapter. The main character has an interaction with the main antagonist, and they have some dialogue, blah 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 blah. And for the audience, they'd be kind of like confused on like, wait a minute, like how does the main character know this about the villain when we haven't seen any like dialogue with him and God and blah 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 blah. So there was so basically in chapter, I think it was 12 or 13, the main character has a brief interaction, I think, with no, God sends him like a memory, and I drew it, but the main character kind of like goes like, oh, like that's what's going on. And to the audience reading it, they're gonna be like, what the heck? Just like that's confusing. I don't know what's happening. But fast forward to chapter 15, when the main character actually meets God face to face and they have some dialogue, it clears up all of that and it brings the audience in, like not visually, obviously visually because it's drawn, but like information wise, text wise, to see like, oh, like that's what happened back then. And that's why. So that's how I personally do it. I like to give a lot of, I guess it's foreshadowing to some stuff. I guess that's the word
Mm-hmm.
for it. I like to give a lot of teasers and stuff, like with the latest like with chapter like 16, what's 16, chapter 15, he picks up a sword off the ground, and people are wondering like, people fans are probably wondering like, how the heck did that sword get there? And how the heck in chapter 16 does he know how to like turn? Like, what the heck is this? Chapter 17, that will be explained. And people will have even more questions because it leads down another rabbit hole that won't be explained until further down the line. So that's how I like to do my stuff. A lot of not necessarily like visually telling what's going on, but more so like actually like verbally and text wise. I guess more realistically, I guess.
Yeah,
That's how I do it.
making sure you know the questions you want the audience to ask, so you'll answer them later.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, all right. So last question: how can people support your goal?
Right now, just of course, reading the story. It's free on Manga Plus, chapters 1 all the way to the current one. And of course, I put them out when I can. But the paperback versions are available on Lulu.com. That's where the revamp just happened, so they just had come out a couple of months ago. So that's really where I guess the main support could be, is to purchase the actual volumes, to put money towards the product and stuff again, because I do a lot of stuff with voice actors and audio engineers and stuff for trailers and for promos and all of that kind of stuff. But and at the end of the day, just supporting the page and spreading the story and awareness, because like I said earlier, my story and what I do isn't geared for the typical like Japanese manga like fan base. Like, it's geared for Western readers, it's geared for people of faith, but it's also geared for people that just want to read an interesting story that's inspired by manga stories from Japan.
All right, that's how it's done. That's how it's done. Well, this has been the Drawing Solo podcast. My name is Mason McKinney, and I am with.
Chris Burns.
And if you want to find out how to get inspiration from anywhere, you can make sure you sign up to the newsletter and get a free ebook that'll show you how to do so. My gift to you. Signing out.